Hey there, Bill Hayes here, the host of Occudocs, the podcast. And don't forget to watch Occudocs, the short videos about what people do, because most people don't know what other people do, and they keep wondering what they could, should, and would be. So please join us again for Occudocs, and tell your friends and subscribe and hit that like button. Welcome to Occudocs, the podcast. We have a very special guest today, Dane Jensen, a regenerative farmer and a shepherd. That would be the world's oldest profession. He's going to explain to us how a California surfer dude from San Diego ended up in North Carolina on one of the most ambitious farming operations on planet Earth.
Thanks for having me.
All right. California to North Carolina, how did that happen?
So I actually went to college here in North Carolina, 2007. Growing up in San Diego, I always played volleyball and was offered a scholarship to play at Lees McRae in the western part of the state. Then once I come up here, I'm not even thinking about school. I'm just like, cool, somebody's going to pay me or pay for my tuition to just play volleyball. So even then I wasn't really paying attention to school. But all my friends that I made in North Carolina, not surprisingly, were into hunting, fishing. A couple of them were raised on farms, and that was completely abstract to me. But first break you have somebody, why don't you come to my family's place for the weekend since you don't want to go home? And I just took to it really fast. It was just it blew my mind that these kids got to grow up like that, and watch their dad be a community staple and whatever they were raising, whether it was beef and all these cool things. So after a few years of doing that, I went back to San Diego. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just trying to figure it out. I was just taking odd jobs in construction and landscaping, but it was always there. And I just slowly started reading certain things. And the jump off was right into what we call regenerative agriculture now. I've started thinking about or reading about guys like Joel Salatin and this whole grass-fed beef world. And for me, not understanding farming, you kind of grow up, especially in California, thinking most farming is what's destroying the planet. Beef are horrible for the planet. You used to hear that all the time. And then you read this book that's all about, no, it's actually the solution if done proper. And I'll be honest, what really got me into it was creating a product like that, creating food. I wasn't even thinking about money, creating food from nothing, because that's kind of where my mind was at. It's kind of funny now, but I was worried that I was going to be homeless. I'm not even kidding. But I just kept reading, thinking about all my friends and the way they grew up and how awesome I thought that was. And I was like, why can't I do that? And I had no idea how it was going to happen. But then just through meeting certain people, I met a guy through my dad, actually, in Paso Robles. A guy similar to Greg, a big investor, business kind of guy. And they wanted to start a winery, which is now Dow Vineyards. And they were just getting started. And I went up just to visit. And then at the end, the guy's very, very nice. And he told me about everything they're doing. And I just said, hey, if you guys ever have an opening for anything, let me know. If you're willing to teach me whatever you guys are doing, I just want to step into something cool. They said, well, we're doing an internship, sign up for it and come back in the fall before harvest. Okay. And, for me, it was like, okay, this really cool place. I loved the town. All the people around that I was meeting, the people that worked there were really cool. I thought learning how to make wine would be an awesome skill and a lot of fun, and it was. So I did that internship. The biggest reason for the move was I knew I was going to be in a more ag-based kind of town, and I actually had access to some of these things, which at the time I thought it was just going to be a hobby. Like I really did want to just get like 5 or 6 goats, a handful of chickens, and just kind of homestead. Because again, I was worried about being homeless. So I was like, it's an hilarious thought, but I really was like, let's figure out food right now. Because again, growing up in San Diego, it's such a big town. It's so overpopulated. It's so expensive. And me as a bad student, I remember just going, how am I ever going to figure out life? How am I ever going to figure this out? And it was kind of a wacky way to be like, well, I'll just learn how to grow my food and I'll be fine. Eventually, what actually happened is, me and my wife at the time had a baby. I was working in the cellar at Dow, making not very much money at all. And so it made sense to take a couple years off. And my wife continued to work, and I just stayed at home with the baby up until about 18 months is when I went back to work. But in the meantime, I'm 26. My wife has this full-time job, and I wake up every morning. I put my daughter Maybell in a little carrier and put her in the front seat of a borrowed ATV from the neighbor, because he would let me use it, because he was into what I was doing. He said, "Here, use this. You could use it. That way you can take the baby around." And I would carry her around and do all my chores. We had rabbits. We had everything. If you name the animal, I have bred it and raised it and then harvested
Now,
it.
this is Northern California?
Paso Robles, Central California.
Central California.
Yeah,
Okay.
San Luis Obispo County.
Okay.
After a couple years of doing that, it was starting to get to the point to where I needed to go back to work. So I was online looking for all sorts of wine jobs, because at that point, that's my skill. That's what I had to pay the bills. And it was nothing but like massive corporate wineries that just needed a full-time forklift guy. And I was like, well, that's not really winemaking, but all right, that's what I got to do. And so I was, exploring that and talking to different places. And then while looking in some classified ads, there was an olive farm that did olive oil. They planted trees on people's property. They managed 160 acres of orchard, and they had sheep. I, at the time, had 50 or 60 sheep and goats, Premier One electric netting that I moved every day by myself in the backyard. And I thought, let's do that right away.
So let's do a little timestamp here.
Yeah.
25. So far, what I'm hearing is an internship has led you into this, and a hobby so far.
Yeah.
It was pretty much a hobby and an internship, which has moved you down the road. And as a mid-20-year-old, you're willing to try many different things to just try to keep figuring out where you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Seems like you're willing to take that job, learn a little bit from it, which is a great thing, and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And I would say even at that point, I really did view it as a hobby.
Okay.
I had my job so that on the weekends I could afford all my chicken feed and some hay and stuff like that. A friend that I had made on the olive ranch, he found what I thought was the greatest job I could ever have. And I remember being so jealous. Anyways, his job was at a place called Adelaide Springs Ranch, or Rangeland Wines. It's 1,500 acres of rangeland up in the Santa Lucia Hills of Paso Robles. Beautiful back country, wild. And it was a grass-fed beef operation and a small winery operation. They had 40 acres of vineyard just to kind of help pay the bills, because that's what you do in that region. It was about that time that company lost their ranch manager. And they asked my friend if they knew anybody. And he said, I got one guy that I think would be perfect for this, but he would have a lot of learning to do. And I actually had an interview with them before, and they wanted to bring me in as a ranch hand. And I just thought, let's just meet these people. And at the end of the interview, they offered me $14 an hour. And I said, I've got a kid at home and a wife. Like, I really just wanted to introduce myself. And that was that. They said, okay, thanks for coming to meet us. But it went nowhere. Then when they lost their ranch manager, my name came up again. And they thought, let's give this guy a try. And so they brought me in, trusted me to run that big giant ranch. I learned cattle work real quick, and that I fell in love with. I love that. So I did that for about 5 years. So that actually was the moment I realized, all on accident, this just became a career. Like, I can actually do this. I'm being introduced to people as this is my ranch manager. We're grass-fed. It was wild. I'm sitting there going, I'm from San Diego. This is nuts. From there, Tobless Creek found out about me. And to back up a little bit, while at Rangeland, we not only had the cattle herd, but we also had a small herd of sheep that somebody else had implemented years ago before me. And at that time, people were starting to figure out the sheep in the vineyard thing, the grazing sheep in vineyard. And so I just had all the tools right there. So we just started. It was, again, only 40 acres of vineyard. We had about 250 head of sheep. The idea at the time was very simple. There's grass in the vineyard that has to be controlled. Instead of running mowers, let's try to mitigate as much as we can with the sheep. And the sheep get fed, and then you get a byproduct. And that's very simple and romantic, right? It doesn't always work out that way. It's a ton of work. Nobody buys lamb. There's all these things. But But what we did see is that the vines, soil, everything was just skyrocketing as far as health goes. Everything was going well. We learned it's not so much about just getting rid of grass and controlling weeds. It could be, but what it really is those sheep building topsoil, cycling the nutrients of all that grass and stuff into topsoil, kickstarting that nutrient cycle, the microbial life and all that. The vines begin to respond to that much more healthy. And then you start realizing that this is just a basic natural system that nature figured out millions of years ago when, you know, this all started. And we're really just harnessing that. Tablas Creek, prior to that, had decided to go full bore into the sheep in vineyards. Integrating livestock into your system, no matter what you're doing, is always going to be a beneficial thing. And I'd always heard about them down the street doing all that. And I thought it was really cool because we were doing that at Rangeland, but it was more of a functional farm with the cattle and everything. If it didn't pencil out, we weren't going to do it. Tablas Creek, they're big on being kind of the first people, experiment. Let's see what works. Let's see what we can get away with. They lost their shepherd who had started their whole program, and they were kind of at a loss, and they were searching all over for the right person because it's a really weird system, and they weren't finding anybody. And then somebody, I think it was through my ex-wife, had a friend whose husband, one of those kind of things, goes, well, their shepherd at the time who was leaving, he actually worked at Rangeland once before I did. And so they were thinking, well, who runs Rangeland now? Oh, that's Dane. Why haven't we called them or called him? And so they called me up, and the timing worked out. I could have worked at Rangeland for the rest of my life, to be honest. But the end goal is to own my own ranch one day. That's what I want. I want my own piece of land. That's mine. Nobody can tell me what to do. That's what I want. And I knew at the time, if I stayed there, that was never going to happen. You know, I'm just going to make that little amount of money, maybe trickle along.
Is that still your goal?
I think so. Own land for sure. Yeah.
And that, I mean, another sidebar, it's always an interesting thing in life when you feel like it's time for you to move on, but you have a relationship with the people you work with and you don't want to stiff them.
No.
So it's or when you have somebody working for you, I've had people work for me and say, you're not growing enough here. You probably need to go somewhere else to do what you're capable of doing. That's another hard thing as well.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of the decision I made. I knew by going to Tablas Creek, I was going to get more networking. I was going to be out there talking to more specialists in this, learning more, making a little bit more, but that wasn't really part of it. There's a benefits package that made a lot of sense for my family at the time. So it's kind of something I had to take. So that gained me, that put me kind of in the spotlight. That was my chance to go out there and show everybody, I can do this. I've got the right mind for it. And people were seeing it. Case in point, that's how I met Greg, because he wanted to go and visit a regenerative vineyard because he had this outlook of something he wanted to do. He had this project in mind. And so that's what anybody like that does. An investor like that. Okay, well, who else is doing this? Let's go see how that works. I mean, I showed Greg around. He was interested in certain things and not others. And I got a good feel for who he was as a person. He said, oh, we want to start a regenerative vineyard. I'm giving him my spiel like, oh, we don't use herbicide. We don't use this. Herbicide's my best friend. I thought you just said you wanted a regenerative vineyard. So I right away realized this really cool relationship I could have with this guy as far as challenges. And all he knows is regenerative. He doesn't know what that means, really. I kind of saw that. Not that he was opposed to it.
That's just not how he grew up.
It's not how he grew up. He grew up a conventional farmer. All he really knew was that regenerative is kind of going to be the next thing. We don't have anybody with any know of how to do this, but we have this really special grape. I had a little bit of understanding of muscadine at the time, but he goes, we have this really special grape that nobody else has. Nobody's farmed it. I've got X amount of dollars to fund this. Would you like to just come out? I'll fly your family out and just take a look. And in my head, out loud, I was like, okay, cool. Here's my number. And in my head, I'm going, no way. No way. I had only been at Tablas Creek maybe 4 months. And it was like this big, big jump up for me in my career to be there. And I remember just in my head, no. But being polite, sure, let's swap information. And I really did put it on the back burner at first. I told my wife about it. And she was very intrigued, and I kind of just said, but you know what, I got a lot more work to do here at Tablas. I got a lot more growth and all that. And then I started really kind of beating myself up. I was like, I should have at least taken the free flight, just for fun, have a nice little weekend. What harm could come of it? But it was already kind of late. I thought maybe I'd burn the bridge by, not talking to him more about it and all that. And I swear to you, that day, I was driving home from work through the hills of Paso. Bing, my phone goes off, and I look and I go, no way. I mean, as that was in my mind, he pings me with a, hey, would you like to rethink this? And I just, without even telling my wife, I just went, yep. And he said, he called me immediately, and Greg moves fast. When he wants something, he gets it, and he wants it yesterday. Before I'm even home, he calls me, send me a picture of your ID, this, that, and the other. I'm gonna buy you a ticket for you and your wife right now. So I walk in the door like, hey, remember this? And she's like, oh yeah. And so pack your bags. We're getting on a plane tomorrow to go see. And by the end of that trip, just that first visit, me and my wife are going, this is it. Let's go. Let's do this. Like, let's call somebody and let's just have them send the kids and a couple of things. Let's just stay. We don't even need to go back. Like, we were super excited about it at the time. But I took a week or two to really hash it out and make sure it was going to work financially for the family and all that. But we all loved the idea. It started to feel right. I was having a great time coming out here with everybody. And we made it work. We made the move in 2022.
So you get here, you've got to learn another world, don't you? In terms of climate, in terms of the grape is a different grape. It's a different, North Carolina is very different
completely
climate.
Different going from wine to table grape. You know what I mean?
And from California to North Carolina soil and climate. This is a very different world here.
Yeah, the big one there is, it's no secret there's a water crisis in California. It's tough. That's a big reason for Tablas Creek going in that regenerative direction, for retaining water in the soil, better water holding capacity in your soils. But it's a constant challenge. It took about 6 months of being like, okay, I see why we grow all the food in California. We might not have any water, but without all that water, you don't have fungus, you don't have weeds, you don't have the pests are way less. Like, everything is a lot easier except for the lack of water. But right away, huge learning curve, learning the climate, and then realizing I'm not in a saturated vineyard industry anymore. Back in Paso, no matter where you go to the gas station, even the guy behind the counter probably worked in a vineyard or a winery and has all the understanding, Any business I call, if I just go to Home Depot and I'm looking for this little thing, they'll be like, oh, you work in a vineyard. Oh, you need this then. Like, everybody. And here, I right away sit down, like, okay, Dane, what are we going to do? Okay, nobody else knows vineyards, so let's start writing this out. And it's just zero support almost. Why would you do that? How do you do this? And I had a huge learning curve leaving that industry, and now everybody else is trying to catch up to what's actually supposed to happen. So we just figured it out on the fly. And made what I would consider a California standard vineyard. If anybody from out west sees it, they're probably going to laugh because it's jungly. It's a little weird. They're used to clean, no grass, any of that. So there's little things like that. But
the jungly is part of the whole regenerative.
Yeah, it is. There's a healthy balance of soil coverage with grass and stuff. And then I can't even see the trellis anymore. It's so bad. That's one of the bigger challenges out there.
What will you do about that? Will the sheep eat that down for you, or are you going to have to mow?
Until the vines are all the way up to your top wire, which is about 5.5 feet, they're going to eat that vine. In the growing season, they're going to eat that vine. So there's year one you plant, and they're too vulnerable for sheep. Once they go dormant, I can graze in the wintertime. But once they wake up again, because it's going to take a year or two to get them in the safe zone, where your foliage is up top, where your grapes are growing, and then you just have like a tree, a stalk coming down. And then you can play with it more. And then there's just, the sheep can't be everywhere at once. So that's when your grazing plan kind of comes into play. You got to really think several months out. How do we get the most effective pass on everything at the right timing to keep the grasses where we want them? The foundational idea is we have grass, let's graze it instead of mow it. And then we can turn, it's not a loss anymore on diesel. But now I can, on top of that, sell the meat. So we're actually making a little bit of money. in theory. It doesn't always work that way.
What's the hardest thing for you being a farmer?
Hardest thing for me.
Because you're a bit more than a farmer. I don't know what to call you.
I don't either. I don't either.
That's the great thing about your job. You can't even put a label on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would be happy if I was a full-blown conventional farmer either. I kind of get a kick out of being, like, you say farmer and people, their mind goes one place. And you go, oh, no, I'm actually growing grapes. And even then they go, oh, so you're making wine? No. And you get to keep taking these turns on them and confusing them, especially with the sheep and the grazing.
But do you still get to say that you're part of the world's largest,
Yeah.
do you get to say you're part of the world's oldest profession?
Yeah. That was a joke that was made years ago when my title at the top was officially, I had a business card somewhere that says shepherd. I mean, how many people in the world get to say that, That was the joke, the world's oldest profession.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's really cool too. It's people think about it a lot, but they don't really think about it being right now. People right now in this country, they might think about somebody in a third world country, herding their sheep around out of necessity. But we're doing it right here.
So what's your time split up in terms of grapes versus sheep?
I try, unless it's a bigger day with the sheep, like maybe we've got to work them through the chute or, do something like that. I try to only spend 2 to 3 hours on the sheep a day. And then the rest of my day is devoted to the vineyard. I just like it to be efficient. Time is money. And so the less time I spend with the sheep, technically the more profit there is at the end of the day. Makes everything just a little bit more palatable,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's usually the first thing I do in the morning. And I might have to come back in the afternoon to do the actual move, but we get everything set up for a couple hours in the morning, do our regular thing and come back. And usually the last thing we do at the end of the day is move them, move their water, make sure they're good for the night, and then we're done.
So where do you see yourself in the future?
Well, like I said, I want to own my own ranch one day. I'd like to own a couple thousand acres. And that's not just being, that's not my ego. I just kind of want to have my own thing. I want to have my own piece of land where I do what I want to do. I raise what I want to raise. My name's on the, on the archway coming in. That's just kind of how I see it. I've always thought I would just be a cattle owner, and I still might. There's some days I wake up and go, I don't even know if I want to farm after this. Like, animals are a lot. They need so much attention. Trying to leave town or even go out to dinner sometimes can be a pain in the ass. You might get a phone call in the middle or something. Hey, they're out or they're something. You know what I mean? So I think about that a lot. But I think I just kind of go back and forth a lot. Maybe I'm just extra stressed about certain things right now. It would be easier if there were no animals. What would I do though? I mean, I've spent so much time in this whole regenerative livestock thing. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to fall back in love with it. I think I'm going to swing back and forth a few times before I got to make that decision.
I got to ask you this. Why is regenerative so important?
It's no secret we're running out of topsoil if we keep farming the way we are. Every time you till the soil, you're wasting. You're exposing all of that topsoil, that dark, rich topsoil, to the sun. And the sun is a sanitizer. And it's going to kill all the microbes. It's going to kill it all off. And that's it. It's just weeds are coming back. It takes, I forget what the number is, but it takes 20 years or some ridiculous amount of time to create like a millimeter of topsoil. So it's a compounding thing that you got to work really hard on and be really patient with. But regenerative is implying regenerating the soils as we farm, not degenerating them as we farm. So we've got to start focusing on that topsoil, however we do that, through no-till or grazing or any of this, to assure that our food system is still intact 100 years from now. So our grandchildren are going to know what these things are, these food things are, or else we're all going to be drinking slime or some weird concoction because we ran out of farming resources. So it's protecting our resources, water holding capacity. The entire climate is kind of revolves around what we're talking about. If everything's disked up and we keep doing this, releasing all this carbon back into the air that we were storing in the soil, this is climate change. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's heating up, oh, it's cooling down. But we are seeing really dramatic weather swings, a lot of stuff like that. I mean, it just gets a little bit chaotic. But just regenerating our soils as we farm, not degenerating it, so that we can continue to feed ourselves for, the rest of time, it would be the goal.
So, what would you tell somebody who was considering they might want to be a farmer one day?
I would say, what's your favorite food? What is on your grocery list? What is something you have fun growing? Like if you just have a little garden in your backyard, like what's the one thing that makes you the happiest? You know what I mean? And do that. When I talk to conventional guys and you just hear them going on about corn and beans and combines and and all these numbers and stuff, and then I go, when was the last time you sat down to a big old bowl of soybeans? What are we doing here? You know what I mean? It's got its place, but I mean, I don't even know what the numbers are. What's the percentage of all that field corn and soybean that actually becomes a human's food on their plate?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. So I would say figure out what you like and what you're going to have fun with and get really into that. And you can be diversified. You know, if you want to be a vegetable farmer, obviously you're going to grow a bunch of different vegetables. And you should. There should always be some sort of polyculture on your farm. There can't just be one thing happening because that's what a monoculture is. And that's how diseases and funguses and all these things take hold because your entire crop is susceptible. You know what I mean? Instead of like if you had a very specific thing that corn could get, and you only have corn, all your corn's getting it. But if you got a little bit of corn and that gets sick, you got a million other things that don't get that problem. And it's kind of a dead end for whatever's happening there. You know what I mean? And for you still have stuff to sell that's not corn. In any business, you got to have a plan. And that's what a business plan is. What are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing 6 months from now? And with farming, you have to do the same. It's no different. It's still a business. But when you wake up in the morning, you get your coffee, and you think, I'm going to go check on this, and then I'm going to get on the tractor, I'm going to do that. And then you get out to the field, and maybe all the sheep are, down the road eating the neighbor's roses. Your day's gone. You're not getting on the tractor. Now you got a rodeo to deal with. Which happens every day. And it could be something simple like that might be kind of fun. It might be some serious case of black rot or something like that in the vineyard.
Again, back to sort of the advice column for people thinking about even this kind of work. What makes it so rewarding?
The final product for me. I get more kick out of, I might have a long conversation with somebody over dinner or something. Maybe they don't know me and I'll be like, yeah, I raise lamb. I'm like, really? What do you do with them? Do you shear them? It's like, no, we don't shear them. It's this whole explanation about something they had no idea about. And then at the end of the night, I like taking that and just giving it to them. I mean, we all want to sell it and turn a profit, But my favorite thing when I was doing chickens, when I was doing pigs, you tell people you're proud of what you do. And then when you're done explaining it, just being like, here you go, take that home. That's the funnest part for me. And again, it goes back to farm what you like. If it's on your grocery list, grow that. It makes it funner, But I like that the most, I think, the final product, explaining what I do and how different it is.
So today on Occudocs, the podcast, Dane Jensen has been here with us, and it's been a great education about regenerative farming, about his career and how an internship and a hobby has turned into a dream job, a job probably didn't even know about. So, and a really fulfilling life living on the land. And I really want to say thank you, Dane. Really great conversation. Really enjoyed just hanging out with you and talking about all this. It's terribly meaningful. It's the world needs to know more about farming. For sure, and how we get our food and healthy food in particular. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime.
All right, buddy.